How's that for one Stream Beat synthwave song? Short break, you bet. Let's get some music going, by the way. So we got synthwave in here. I did download Stream Beats Hi-Fi, but I have no idea where it went. So we'll just load up some Stream Beats here. How's the volume here? 7%. I can hear it in the headsets. That's all that matters. Yep, good. As long as there's proper audio ducking between everything. All right. This is the part of the discussion that's going to be made into the spin-off video. Those of you who want to see the hour of recap, be sure to check out the full replay for those of you watching after the fact. All right, it's in the title. We need to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. Let's talk about it. Super thanks and the streaming bubble bursting. Super thanks is the latest in the YouTube Supers category. Thank you again for King Europe for the super chat earlier in the show. Super thanks. Get Firefox ready to go here. Super thanks, YouTube, super thanks. So, super thanks, what is it? It started out as it's basically a dono button for videos, not eligible for things that are live. Let me actually verify that that's the case too. Load everything up here. Lack of a dark mode with all these browser windows. It's great. It's not available for this, right? Because that's what Super Chat is for. YouTube, super thanks. Streaming bubble will burst. Mute. Yep, it is not visible in the UI. Good stuff. So here's the thing. YouTube traditionally has had a very aggressive culture among the users towards the idea of monetization. So people would call you an e-beggar or something like that. But super thanks is the final version, or the release candidate or whatnot version of viewer applause. I'm just looking for the YouTube help. All right, there's a YouTube blog entry for this. So what it basically is those of you that know the difference between a dono and a donation. Dono is the informal streaming term. Donation is you're a 501c3 and you're authorized legally as a business to take donations. But what super thanks is actually a YouTube blog entry just posted July 20th, 2021. So basically what it is, the dono button, it puts an animation over the screen and gives you a special comment in the comments section as well as showcasing what you purchased the super for and whatnot. So the big issue I have with super thanks, or YouTube applause, it used to formerly be known as, and I think there's a little demo right here of it as well. Let's see. Let's link let's link up Firefox and make sure that it doesn't show live control room. There we go. Make sure it shows the right thing. And let's actually let's put this demo on the screen and let's actually cut this down. Let's cut this down and so that you can just have the demo on the screen here. So let's see. Bring this. Actually, let's uncrop this and let's just scroll down a little. So this is actually what super thanks look like. There's different price points for various applauses, but what it basically is, it's a dono button for videos. Now, this idea is something that I used to consider to be rather contrived. I want to make myself bigger and whatnot. It's a rather contrived idea because a lot of the reasons why donoing works so well for live streams is because of the instant live reaction. So I think if any YouTubers want to be taken seriously with this stuff, one of the things that YouTubers need to very seriously talk about when it comes to super thanks is how are you going to incorporate this into your channel? If a video gets a super thanks, I think it's only the person that posted that sees the balloons. Maybe I think the creator sees it too. But whoops, wrong pipe almost. Don't want to be coughing on stream. So you have this sort of thing going on. You get the little animation and stuff, and a comment shows up. Laura Mipsum. Nice joke on Lorem Ipsum, YouTube. You get this thing showing up on the screen, and of course there's a thing. It's kind of like super chat, but it's not after the fact, but it's not instant. So you get the comment, you get the thing, and things along those lines. Platform benefits, creator benefits. So I think every YouTuber who has this needs to look at ways to implement this into what they do on their channel. In my case, I think I would incorporate it maybe into stream shoutouts or even make videos or whatnot to recognize all of this. Now, why am I such a big fan of internal systems? Because internal systems keep everything internal, The platform can create perks like custom emojis and things like that for things like channel memberships and stuff. Although, one thing that I really think YouTube needs to think about, especially if they get inspiration from Twitch, which I kind of know they do for some of the things they say in Creator Insider, they just don't mention it by name. One of the things that I think YouTube needs to do, allow a certain tier of YouTube memberships that gives viewers ad-free viewing of your channel. And I set it to where, I don't know, maybe the platform can have a minimum or something if they have to insist on something. But set it to where, well, if that's the case, then I don't know why you'd want, for example, if you had like a $5 a month and a $10 a month tier, why would you actually have the $5 a month with no ads and the $10 a month one with ads? It wouldn't make any sense. It'd be stupid. But part of the issue with some of this, though, with YouTube memberships is that it's a little bit more contrived compared to, say, a sub on Twitch and whatnot, because people are still getting used to the idea that you can support for X a month, you know, someone directly for X dollars a month, as opposed to having to depend on ad revenue and stuff. But I think that's something they could incorporate into that. But yeah, YouTube and platforms have the option of adding perks to these sorts of things, as opposed, and the big thing too is, people on the internet, myself included, tend not to like things taking more clicks than absolutely necessary. Why don't we just bump this over a little? People on the internet tend not to like stuff taking more clicks than absolutely necessary. So if you can support someone without having to go over to Stream Elements or without having to break away from what it is that you're doing, it's easier and more convenient to do so, and the platform gets a cut. So, and that's one of the things YouTube needs as well. I know people were upset about the adpocalypse, but the world is changing to the point where this type of stuff doesn't have as much of an emphasis on advertising as it did before, because there's other forms of what's called scalable revenue for these platforms to pay their bills with, or try to anyways. And one of those is people supporting other creators. I think the big question that YouTube's going to have to answer sooner rather than later is, how do YouTubers fit into their platform? How do YouTubers fit into their platform if they're not very advertiser friendly, but they have an audience that's constantly throwing supers? Right now, the YouTube Partner Program is really all linked together. If your channel gets demonetized, you lose access to everything, including stuff that has nothing to do with advertising. So YouTube needs to come up with a solution so that if someone's not very advertiser friendly, they don't lose everything, because by definition, the platform's going to lose everything too. If YouTube can wean itself off of this advertising thing and keep it as, you know, a source of revenue for the platform, but not the source of revenue, then YouTube will have a much better future when they're not having to worry about adpocalypses, because, okay, all right, now we'll just turn off advertising for the people that aren't ad friendly, and it's not going to matter because there's other things people can do if they want to support creators. And of course, if you want to pick up advertising as part of channel revenue, you're going to be encouraged to make stuff that's more ad friendly via the system itself. But I can tell you, YouTubers are already a step ahead of the platform on this. Demonetization, I mean, you'll see a channel that is persistently getting demonetized, meaning no ad revenue, or getting kicked out of the ad program entirely. You'll see channels that'll be like, they'll have sponsor deals, they'll sell merch, they'll have like a Patreon or something. So many YouTubers who have problems with advertiser friendliness already have their plan B in action. You'll hear about it in their videos. They may even style everything up like, the man's out to get me. YouTube is censoring me and demonetizing my videos. Please support me on blah, 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 instead of, you know. And there's a compelling interest, obviously, from business perspective in YouTube making that not necessary. So I think it's inevitable. I think it's completely inevitable that YouTube will eventually split off advertising, especially when, from everything else, especially when YouTube is long overdue for some kind of first level monetization tier for creators, because YouTube infamously has some of the worst qualifications to even get into the program in the first place. A year-long evaluation period, 4,000 public watch hours, 1,000 subscribers. Some of that is because YouTube had to dial everything back a couple of years ago to keep the ad revenue not ridiculous for the people that were in the program. But if YouTube has to scale who has access to ad revenue based on the size of your channel, why should that undercut their ability to scale what they can bring in from people who may not have enough activity to have advertising be significant for them, but they could get a fan base with supporters in other ways? This is a question I've been asking for months at this point, and considering Super Thanks took so long to get out of beta, it spent its beta life since February 2020, I think, right? Maybe even 2019. I have to check. It was in beta for over a year. That's what we're talking about here. It was in beta for over a year. It's crazy, you know, right? It was in beta for over a year, and this has been overdue for so long. So that Super Thanks, yeah, you buy an applause thing. It puts a special comment similar to if someone does a super chat in the chat and stuff like that, lights it up and stuff like that in the comments section. Creator can respond and they'll see it and whatnot. And the creator can respond in a later video, stream intro during the shout out period, whatever it is. But I think the biggest challenge to Super Thanks is that it's not an instant reaction. I mean, if you have, for example, a good looking Twitch streamer girl who like dances to K-pop or something when someone tips $5 or something, then, I mean, that's the sort of thing where, oh yeah, she'll do a dance for like a minute or so. I mean, that's the sort of thing some people can, you know, appreciate and regularly do. But if that's not live and it's not an instant reaction, how do you justify that other than you like the person and want to support what it is that they do? Without going into PBS mode or whatnot, where we're going to have this big drive, big subathon. Come on, everybody, support everything. This is listener supported. I'm sure you've probably seen those if you've seen any PBS. Every so often, they have this thing where they're always soliciting donations and stuff like that. But that's the thing with this sort of thing. Super Thanks, cool idea. It fills a gap that has been missing from YouTube's monetization setup for a very long time. The question is, when will people kind of become more comfortable with it? Because YouTube's culture has traditionally been antagonistic towards financial support of creators. Even if you're talking about fun money or stuff that can actually, even if you're talking about stuff that could bankroll like future videos or something, like raising money for a trip somewhere, or in my case, one of the big things I do with supers, ad revenue, etc., is I keep a spreadsheet of how much I can spend before I start spending my own money again. And so any tech purchase for tech videos that doesn't make any sense to do on my own will fund that with stuff that comes from this other stuff. So that's an option available as well. I mean, people talk about making money on these platforms like, oh, you don't want to get another job, you're lazy. No, actually. It could be the case that if you have, for example, folks who are like, don't spend money that you don't need to, you can tell them, I didn't, because the folks who support what I do are the reason why I bought the new power supply for mid-naughts. I bought the 8320E and that motherboard for Tuxedo when the motherboard died. Now, I did all of that. And it's sort of thing where that's where people's support went, was to stuff that's used to make more videos. So reinvest back in what it is that you're doing. Very common thing in business. But this sort of thing with Super Thanks has been missing for a long time. And quite frankly, it fills a gap between YouTube and Twitch. It's going to be very interesting with how supers and memberships advance YouTube versus what Twitch managed to take out of it in the last couple of years. All right, what is the history of monetization on YouTube versus Twitch? Why am I talking about this? So, once upon a time, people called YouTube partnership, or monetization, what it actually is: ad revenue sharing. There are even competitors to YouTube like Rever back in the early days of this stuff that sold their platforms based on the fact that you as a creator were able to keep your revenue from, or not keep your, but were able to get an actual ad revenue share. I think that even went into the name for Rever, like Rever, etc. I think that even went into the name of the platform. So it eventually grew into something where YouTube partnership, ad revenue sharing, etc. Then it somehow became known as monetization. But eventually we got to the point where monetization on YouTube was basically ad stuff. Starting in the 2010s, though, over on Twitch, you had streamers soliciting donations, as they call them, although the legal term is wrong. If you're not a 501c3, you really can't call them that for tax purposes. But the informal term donos kind of arose based on that. So I'll use the informal term most of the time, just so people know what I'm talking about, because they're actually tips. So, as a matter of fact, on YouTube, they recently reclassed it all, so it's counted as royalties in the tax systems, at least here in the US. So check the help file for up to the minute information on that one. But so the idea of supporting streamers started becoming a thing on Twitch. Next thing you know, you have subs, cheers, the whole 9 yards, and all this other stuff. And because it's flat amounts from people that are like, I like this guy, I'll toss him a couple of bucks, times X amount of people doing that, you could eclipse YouTube ad revenue relatively quickly. Take, for example, if you were just getting started as a monetized, barely monetized at that, YouTuber, and you're getting like $3 a month or whatever in ad revenue. One person deciding to sub to you on Twitch for $5 a month, actually 2 because the 50-50 sub split, at 2 Twitch subscribers, just 2, you're eclipsing the ad revenue. And so people figured this out. And at the same time, YouTube was taking a hit on the advertising side with the adpocalypses. Brands were furious and pulling ads and stuff like that. So YouTube had to scramble to develop what we now know as the demonetization system, but even still, the idea of like breathing wrong and some robot taking your ad revenue and whatnot because you're not advertiser friendly or whatever, that didn't sit well, obviously, with creators. And so with the adpocalypse and the disgruntled nature of it, we started seeing people leaving YouTube and going to Twitch, creating this Twitch streamer or this Twitch tuber thing that exists nowadays, where people primarily want to stream on Twitch, but have a YouTube channel on the side. So fundamentally, though, eventually it got to the point where I heard people say, hey, yeah, YouTube ad revenue is garbage. And of course, it fell enough to the point where YouTube gated it, creating the gates to the partner program that exists nowadays. There was a time when they let everyone be a partner once their channel got to a certain size, but now it's based on sustaining a certain channel size. But YouTube and ad revenue wasn't adding up. When people donoing flat amounts can easily eclipse ad revenue on a channel, especially smaller channels, it became, people figured it out and they wanted to be streamers. Problem is, streaming has drawbacks. You have to be live, you have to be streaming at relatively the same time so people know when to tune in. And a lot of what makes certain types of streams fun is not watching them after the fact. So there's a whole bunch of extra factors versus just releasing YouTube videos every so often that people can watch at their leisure or hit watch later or something on. There's a whole bunch of other stuff in play with being live versus making videos. But because Twitch streaming was way better than YouTubing, money-wise, people would go for that. Even if Twitch was a much smaller platform with far less technology and far less algorithms and stuff, so you can randomly get discovered by folks. Even if Twitch was, you know, a very distant competitor. I mean, TikTok's even bigger than Twitch. You look at, for example, the size of Douyin TikTok versus the size of Twitch on top social medias like we did earlier. It's a surprise TikTok has grown to being bigger than Twitch. So all those people making cell phone videos and you can lightning round a whole bunch of people's TikToks at once in about 2 minutes really allows you to very easily follow a bunch of creators when everybody's limited to 60 seconds of video or longer nowadays, but can't be too long. Just like in the Twitter world. Just like what Twitter did to blogging. Tweeting used to be called micro-blogging. And people are like, you can barely type anything. How's that ever going to work? Yeah, well, look at Twitter nowadays. What do you hear more about, Twitter or WordPress? Twitter or Blogspot? Twitter or Blogger? What do you hear more? Some people say, what happened to blogging? Well, if you are reading a bunch of people's blogs, how you have tweets versus blogs. What's easier to keep track of a whole bunch of people at once with? Tweets. They're shorter. It's not going to take you all night to get caught up when you're scrolling through your Twitter feed. So similar with videos and whatnot. That's why short videos, You know, the tail that wagged the YouTube dog. YouTube's chasing after it with YouTube Shorts now, which is kind of work in progress. I don't see numbers that are anywhere near what I see with even the random stuff that I put on TikTok. But yeah, so the history of monetization is that YouTube, around the time of the adpocalypse, fell behind. And so they've had some catch up they've needed to make. But how to make some of the things that work in a live streaming environment work with uploads has been the real question here. And so super thanks to the answer that folks like myself have been looking for a very long time. And I'm very happy to see that my channel was eligible very shortly after the feature launched. So it's now on my videos. So when I go and revamp everything for better discoverability, because tags have been replaced by titles and descriptions in terms of how important they are with the search engine and everything like that, we can go through and we can do some things here and there, put some stuff in the descriptions and whatnot, and work on all the after the fact stuff, because I found out very early on YouTube's not very good at stuff that is time sensitive if you're not a big channel. You're not going to win in terms of the algorithm and search results. Matter of fact, there's a problem with growing on YouTube from zero nowadays that didn't exist a couple of years ago because of the way the algorithms work these days. But discussing that's beyond the scope of tonight's discussion. But that's a history of monetization with YouTube and Twitch. Twitch came up with some stuff before YouTube did, and YouTube's had to play catch up. But with all the technology that Google brings to the table, YouTube is only a couple of notable design changes away from being a real monster across multiple forms of online media. So why is there a streaming bubble? We talked about it, we're kind of blending the topics together here. The streaming bubble exists because there was a time, not long ago, when streaming was more worth it. If you wanted some kind of like way to like fund your stuff or try and make a full-time job out of it, streaming was better because it had stuff that videos didn't. So here we are at a time when YouTube's having adpocalypse after adpocalypse after adpocalypse. They're turning around and getting into the partner program in the first place, while Twitch is like, cheers, bits, subs, then you can get partner deals, brand deals, sponsors, merch, the whole 9 yards. I mean, the money side of, and a far less aggressive culture on Twitch for financially supporting creators. That might be called into question as the mainstream media gets into streaming, because if you can pay $5 a month to tier 1 sub to one of your favorite streamers on Twitch versus $5 a month for Discovery Plus if you like more than one television show that's available through that, why wouldn't the Disney Pluses and the Discovery Pluses of the world start putting pressure on the fan bases of streamers who are selling their monthly thing for the same price? So you have maybe some IRL streamer who streams 4 or 5 hours a day, hopefully at the same time, hopefully semi-consistently, versus a 24-hour TV channel. Or access to something like a miniature version of Netflix that's only for one rights holder. I really wonder about what Disney Plus and Discovery Plus and all these Plus services are going to do to Twitch streamers now that the big guys are getting involved. If you have a favorite show of some sort that you can binge watch, why wouldn't you pay your $5 a month to Discovery or Disney and have access to movies, all kinds of other stuff, versus some live streamer and whatever they're doing? See what I mean? So I'm not emphasizing. I was already convinced not to try and be a full-time content creator just from what it does to YouTubers who didn't even stream. Never mind what it's going to be like these days. And then you got people out there trying to sell. Got people out there that are trying to sell. Let's make your stream better. Do you want a bigger? Let's make your stream bigger. Do you really want a bigger stream when all this stuff's about to happen? I'd say whoever shows up, shows up. Now, and if you don't like that you don't have a big audience when you're live, cater your streams so they're watchable after the fact. Erode away that disadvantage that streams have versus videos with the time sensitivity of them. Get some show flow. Put on a show. Oh, my chat isn't full of people spamming Dankies or Pepe Laugh every 2 seconds, so I'm going to give folks something to listen to that's worth listening to instead. You know? I mean, television didn't evolve into this unorganized mess like a lot of live streaming is nowadays. It evolved into what it is because, quite simply, what wound up working with the format, whether live TV or syndicated TV or anything of that sort. But the streaming bubble largely exists because YouTube was in trouble for a while. When you could only get ad revenue, and then that had to be dialed back, and then the advertisers were pulling their ads, and all kinds of other stuff, and the numbers sunk, and they had to gate them, so maybe your channel wasn't big enough to stay monetized, blah, 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 and now things are changing again. Of course you'd become a streamer. Of course you would become a streamer instead of a YouTuber. But now, ask yourself this question. Ignore the big guys. Ignore Disney Plus, ignore Discovery Plus, ignore Paramount Plus, ignore all those Plus services where you spend $5 a month to gain access to a rights holder's back catalog. Ignore all the Plus services out there. Let's talk about streamer versus YouTuber. You have a Twitch streamer. Your $5 a month supports their Twitch streams, which are then front and center and take over everything they do. Maybe they hire an editor or something to make YouTube videos that are just the streams. So it's always some unorganized stream, and you may not like it after a while because it just takes up too much of your time having someone on screen all the time. Or maybe you like multiple people who stream at the same time. You're like, oh crap, who do I watch on what night? See, all this baggage that's associated with streaming. Or how about YouTube? So it's real easy if you can't watch a streamer all the time, and Twitch streams are best when they're live. Your content is dead if you're not live, especially with the lack of discoverability that Twitch is infamous for. And how about inferior technology for being discovered, algorithms, video after the fact in general, or even DMCA? Now, at least they tried to update their system so strikes can expire now if you get copyright strikes, but that's another discussion. Now let's imagine YouTube. You have a $5 a month membership tier. And if someone doesn't feel like streaming or they're too busy to stream, they make videos instead. Or they make YouTube shorts, or they do something. And you like a little of everything that they do, even though they don't stream all the time. Way harder to think that your $5 is being wasted, especially on a platform with a very robust background in supporting after the fact stuff. In supporting evergreen stuff. And we just wandered into the next topic. Oh, it's going to be so hard. But yeah, that's why there's a streaming bubble. At some point, YouTube fell behind and they had to catch up. And now here they are, catching up. Why will the streaming bubble burst? Because this is stuff that YouTube didn't have before that it does now. And when you compare the differences between YouTube and Twitch, with their emphasis on live only, no content ID system, and all the other problems that Twitch routinely has, at some point, and then when you look at just format versus format, making videos versus streaming, eventually, if you critically think about it, videos start looking more interesting if you don't give up your ability to progress as a creator in order to make them. So with super thanks, you have a dono button on videos. With memberships, you have a sub button essentially for people making videos. It's an omni-channel, omni-media answer to something like Twitch with these new features that are out. Next up, Fwiz and all the YouTube brass need to come up with a plan to allow people access to non-advertising revenue earlier than when they qualify to get ad revenue. An affiliate program, if you want to call it that, whatever. But right now, there's all of this monetization that has nothing to do with ads available for creators, and let the content sink or swim. Let people get used to this idea and then see if people start donoing. You know? Now it's time for YouTube to take this in that direction. YouTube's catching up. You have the stuff that you get from Twitch, but it's not just on the live streams. It can be on the videos as well. I could stop streaming for 2 months. Folks like King Europe would still have options if I made a good enough video that they liked. He did a super chat earlier, by the way. And by the way, it doesn't take very many super chats with the current state of YouTube ad revenue now that the bubble's bursting from all the lockdowns to surpass what ad revenue would be. Now here's the fun part. Because we the people, if we tip a few folks here and there, we the people can easily get past ad revenue so easily, that eliminates the drive to have lots of ads. Get a creator to the point where they feel like turning off mid-rolls, they turn off mid-rolls. In my case, I have mid-rolls turned off on the tech videos because I want those to be very binge-watchable, and I have yet to see YouTube's algorithms that are supposed to smartly place ad breaks to balance creator revenue and viewer experience. I have yet to see them do that. I made an hour-long video about mice last go-around, computer mice, and I tried mid-rolls, and the place where the robot put everything was so jarring. I was like, nope, turn it back off. I don't care that it's an hour long. These streams, however, that are a lot less organized, just talking off the cuff like this, if it gets random like that with mid-rolls, oh well. But for my YouTube videos, for the tech videos in particular, I want people to be able to binge watch the heck out of those. You find out about Tuxedo, for example, or the Delosaurus sitting back there in the shadows. Ooh. Now, like, hey, this computer. Hey, what's the deal with this computer? What's the story of this computer? I have a playlist. The story of the Delosaurus, the story of Delosaurus Rex, the story of Tuxedo, the story of Midnaughts. You click it in the end screen, you get the backstory. But you're not going to get to that end screen if you're annoyed by ads halfway through. YouTube can get their money from how binge-watchable the tech videos are, not from jarring up someone's experience with 3 or 4 mid-rolls in a 15-minute video, which I've seen, by the way. There are certain, even among the mainstream media, like MSNBC versus The Hill versus CNN versus Fox News versus any big media outlet, Bloomberg, C-SPAN, Reuters. There are certain channels I'm watching on YouTube now and not watching others because of mid-rolls. The robots just don't work well enough to not jar up my experience with a piece of content with too many mid-rolls in too short a time period. But if YouTube can make up for that with the people side of it as well, as well as the ads, drop the mid-rolls because you're a partner and you have the option of turning them off, give your viewers a better experience no matter how much it hurts your bottom line, and make up for that when people are binge watching more. Someone new to your channel, what's this Delosaurus? Let me go back to the beginning and watch the whole darn story. Because you know what? Sorry, YouTubers, myself included, we can get full of ourselves sometimes, and Netflix has been a thing the whole time. Netflix predates YouTube. Get like a show series on DVD Netflix back in the day before YouTube existed and binge watch like The Sopranos or something. And in today's wonderful world, well, you got binge watching on Netflix and now binge watching on YouTube as well. So YouTube making up this ground, cool stuff. There needs to be more though. The more progress YouTube makes, and hopefully without features taking years to get out of beta, the more progress that YouTube makes, the more they're going to assert their position in the online media world. But yeah, the streaming bubble will burst as YouTube catches up. Now let's conclude this discussion by talking about this bursting bubble. Current state of other commentators I keep an eye on. So I've been familiarizing myself with the updates on a lot of folks who've done commentaries about the multimedia meta. So let's rattle them off. Nick Nimmin, always Mr. YouTube guy, still does streaming and other stuff. He'll be like the control example because he's always been on the YouTube side of things. But let's take a look at the people that went over to the TwitchTuber world of things now. And what they've, and where they're at nowadays. Harris Heller decided to come over to YouTube, become a YouTube streamer. Devin Nash has some philosophical issues with Twitch right now. Made a big long video about how he doesn't want to stream on Twitch for the foreseeable future. I predict he becomes a YouTube streamer. That the urge to stream makes him eventually want to just come over and stream on YouTube. Let's see, who else? Ashley Christ has a regular job. in addition to all the stream coach stuff. Yeah, she can get incendiary from time to time on Twitter. But I found out about the whole thing where she joined that gaming studio or whatnot as community lead and stuff like that. So there's somebody, getting a job, getting some experience and not having to depend on, numbers and whatnot on the side. So let's see. Ego Garrett does his thing. Big E bounces between the services, whatever works, depending on the terms of the contract and things like that. But people are waking up. Quirky Pixel is doing a mix of stuff now. I gotta see what she's been doing on her channel. She took a break from things for a bit, but she's also already a part-time content creator who has a job, so I don't think there's anything wrong with content creators having jobs. Matter of fact, although you do less stuff, what you do make is probably better because you're not trying to pay the bills with it. You have more creative freedom with these kinds of setups. So I think that would be a cool thing as well. But you think of these names of these folks, especially Harris Heller, who has a lot of stuff going on with Senpai Records and Streambeats, the cool service that is. That's what we're listening to, by the way, Streambeats Synthwave. I got to add Hi-Fi and the other more recent releases to the library I have available to run these things with. I thought I had Hi-Fi. Where'd it go? I think I got it mixed up with, I downloaded Streambeats Ambient last time and played it. So I thought I had Hi-Fi, but I really had Ambient ready to go. But Hi-Fi is like peppy or lo-fi music. But now, I don't mind the parallels to Dr. Disrespect, except my colors are blue instead of red. I'm his age too, by the way, so I'm also close to his age too, so no surprise there. Well, is that why you wear sunglasses? Well, at least I don't wear a wig, so you can see that I actually have gray hair. So, but yeah, the streaming bubble, it was a thing because of conditions around the time of the adpocalypse. I don't expect it to have any long-term staying power. And I don't know how many people have seen the boom and bust cycle of these streamers. Oh, we're actually done with those topics. I don't know how many people have seen the boom and bust cycle of these streamers where they grind away trying to make a bunch of money because they're full-time streamers, and then they get burnt out and they have to take some mental health break, and they come back and like, I'm glad I took a break. Then they get back into grind mode eventually, and then they bust again, go out on another mental health self-care break. I mean, when does it stop? It stops when you realize the freedom that exists with various types of videos, whether it's TikToks or YouTube videos. It stops when you realize the freedom you get from not being tied to a time slot or not having to just keep talking for 2 hours like I have and wear out your voice, because you can actually take a break between takes and nobody's gonna know when you're making your videos. You know? Or you can not talk at all. Do a pets and animals channel like Munchkin. Or to a lesser extent, but Jun's Kitchen. You know, you can do all these. There's so many creative opportunities available to make something evergreen that people want to watch years after the fact that live streaming can't really do. Not very well anyways. Although it has been nice to see some of my older streams that I left on YouTube starting to get views after a couple of months, just like everything else that I have on this platform. The algorithms are slow, but they eventually work. Fun stuff. But yeah, super thanks. That's a feature I've been looking for quite some time. Up next should be YouTube working on improving their monetization system so it's not so dependent on ads. People can get in on it even if they don't have ads yet at a much easier level, and work on getting to the point where they can earn ad revenue. Get to the point where if you're not ad friendly, you lose only the ad revenue and reapply later, instead of getting kicked out of the partner program and having to reapply later. That should be the next major goal of YouTube. Next major UI change. Along with the UI changes that'll make it easier to find streams to watch. The sub button would be a good place for that. Don't tie go live notifications to needing to click all notifications on the bell all the time. So people can just subscribe to your channel and learn and get a notification that you're going live. But it's good to see more of a human face on YouTube these days, instead of it being this faceless Borg machine type thing that it was for years. These names are starting to know. The folks who do like Connor and some other folks that do the Creator Insider videos, the YouTube Creators channel, tweets from folks like Fwiz and whatnot. You know, YouTube managers with Twitter accounts that talk about what's going on YouTube. Puts more of a human face on YouTube as opposed to that video thing that has all that stuff that doesn't work from time to time. Really cool to see that. But yeah, I may look like a YouTube fanboy of some sort. Well, there's a lot to like about YouTube, despite its problems. I would go so far as to say that YouTube, with its problems, is better than some of these other problems with some of these other platforms with their problems, especially Twitch. I really don't know what's going to happen to Twitch in the next couple of years. They're going to have to double down on sticking to their guns and stuff like that. they're gonna have to double down on gaming and gaming type stuff because they just don't have the technology to really be a Twitch competitor at this point. That thing from earlier where I was demoing the super thanks is still going. All right, let's close that. We're definitely done with that. So, super thanks. I'm glad it finally came out of beta. Up next, I want to see YouTube refine their entire partner program to match what the 2020s is like. It may mean that Susan Wojcicki needs to retire from YouTube as CEO, or step down from her CEO position, because I know she has the big advertising background. The industry is moving away from having to kiss up to advertising so much. There needs to be options for folks that aren't advertiser friendly, or not as advertiser friendly. And there needs to be options in terms of letting people in on the non-advertising stuff before they are big enough to really have ad revenue on their channels. Let's see now. You have Supers, which is the most straightforward cheering system that I've ever seen on any of these platforms. No fake currency or anything here. You buy a $5 super chat, a $10 super chat. The exchange rate is calculated out, as we saw with King earlier. You have that. You have the cheering system through super chats. You have the sub system through memberships. And now you have a dono system on your videos after the fact, similar to what super chats offer through super thanks. And you have premieres to straddle the fence between live and video and have a little bit of both. There's really no reason why YouTube shouldn't look at revamping things afterwards. But for the time being, it's nice to see the signs falling into place of what's to come with regards to the streaming bubble bursting. Because this whole streaming bubble thing has been an issue with online media for long enough. That's where we'll call it with this discussion. We've been talking for nearly 2 hours. 1 minute 46:04 on the timer here. Holy crap. So what's up next for me? I have videos, I have tech videos I can work on. My next tech video project, by the way, is going to be when I start working on memberships. I've had some tech video stuff start becoming a thing on this channel again, and it will continue. Streaming does not need to take over everything. Not in the 2020s. Just like with YouTube's partner program, advertising doesn't have to take over everything because it's the 2020s. Let's get back to work on that stuff. Till next time, this is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.